Good evening. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. It is August 15th, 6 p.m. Tonight we have a special meeting and we're going to change the order just slightly. The first that we'll do tonight is our color guard will be presented by the NJROTC. Following that, during that, I will lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then we'll follow that with an invocation by retired Navy chaplain, Pastor David Lura. So would you please stand for our color guard presentation?
Color guard, left, forward, march, left, 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 right, left. Color guard, halt. Left, face, carry, colors, ready, cut, present, colors,
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
carry, colors, ready, cut, order, colors, ready, cut,
Post the colors.
right, face, forward, march, left, 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 right, left, left, right.
Please pause with me as I pray. Creator God, I call upon you this evening to be present not only to all those gathered herein for the business of this great city, but also and especially upon this occasion in support of the commissioning of the 9th edition of the USS Washington. Yes, the first 6 were named for our first president, but the next 2, a cruiser and a battleship, and this latest, a submarine, are named for the great state named for him where we reside. Make her the champion of all those who are crushed by tyranny and despotism. May she have the greater glory of being an instrument of justice and peace. And may the ship's motto of preserving peace, prepared for war, be uppermost in the minds of all and not simply printed on the ship's crest. Bless the Washington and her crews. Bless those at the helm as captain and cob. As a home beneath the seas, may this ship be a place where each works in the interest of the common good. And finally, may the Lord bless and keep all who serve. May the Lord's face shine upon the crews and be gracious to all of us who seek a righteous and enduring peace. And so I conclude this prayer with a verse from what is affectionately called the Navy hymn as I sing. Creator God of earth and sea, we dedicate this ship to thee. In faith we send her on her way. In faith to thee I humbly pray. Oh, hear from heaven our sailors' cry, and watch and guard her from on high. And all God's people say, Amen.
Amen. Many thanks, Pastor Laura. I forgot to introduce the color guard, and they're out on probably in the hallway. But thank you very much to Cadet Dylan Sanchez, Cadet Elaine Gary, Cadet Michael White, and Cadet Jalen Munger. And also thank you very much to retired Chief William Thiel for bringing him here, and tell him thank you very much from all of us. Okay, you may be seated. We're just about to get to the proclamation, but before we do, I would like to announce that we have in attendance retired Rear Admiral Mike Sharp. Welcome, Mike. Command Master Chief Mike Quick, NAS Whidbey Island. Executive Officer Commander Craig Himpeck, NAS Whidbey. Thank you. Welcome. And our very own Navy League National Director, Northwest Regional President Dick Devlin, the Navy League. So I think right before the proclamation, I'd like an approval of the agenda. Anybody? Okay.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Servadius, second by Wassinger to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Excuse Danny.
Yes, okay. We do have one council member absent tonight, Mayor Pro Tem Danny Pagao. So we've got he'll be excused then. Okay. And our first actual form of business is our proclamation. And I think we have Beth Munns here to present that. And she's going to present it to retired Rear Admiral Mike Sharp.
Either side. Whereas the United States Navy will be commissioning the USS Washington, the 14th Virginia-class submarine. And whereas she will be the third vessel to be named by the U.S. Navy for the state of Washington. And whereas she will be the first warship named Washington since World War II. And whereas her pre-commissioning unit began manning up in January 2014 to support extensive testing, qualifications, and preparations required to bring a nuclear sub to life. And whereas, when delivered, the USS Washington will be the most technologically advanced submarine in service, as well as the least expensive. And whereas the City of Oak Harbor has citizens and city employees who are military veterans, and many of whom are proudly serving in our armed forces today. And whereas the United States Navy has selected Saturday, the 7th of October, 2017, as the date of the commissioning of the USS Washington at Norfolk Naval Station. Now, therefore, we, Bob Severance, Mayor, and council members of the City of Oak Harbor, commends and supports the commissioning of the USS Washington, signed this 15th day of August, 2017. And to go along with it, we know that new ships have a library, and we'd like to present two from their book list, but we also wanted to give a special one about our city here that we love for them also. So would you please deliver that to the ship group? Thank you very much.
This is great. We've been doing this for 5 years, being this committee. I made the biggest mistake. Every lawyer knows you never ask a question that you don't know the answer to. So I just moved out here, and my good friend Larry Salter, you probably all know Larry Salter.
Oh, yeah.
Larry and I we didn't know each other at the time, but we went to college together and got to know each other over there. So they had just come out with the message that says they're going to have a submarine named the USS Washington. And in the spring of 2012, I said, Larry, you guys going to sponsor the new submarine? And he says, are you going to be the chairman? So he got me. So it's been a long, long road, and you get all sorts of things that you ought to go do. I'll tell you, we never thought about having a city do a proclamation. So Oak Harbor is the only city in the state of Washington, in the country, that has a proclamation for the USS Washington. So I'm very touched about that. Quickly, I'll tell you that the ship is already been delivered and is operational. We all of these traditional things are now more tradition than actuality. They don't build ships today like they did 200 years ago. So the ship was delivered in June, and has been operational, and we've had some schedule quirks, and the Gerald R. Ford just got commissioned, and we didn't want to get in the middle of that. Plus, it was like 110 degrees that day, so the Navy has picked October. And Mr. Mayor, it would be wonderful if you could be there. If you've not gone to a commissioning, the night before is a committee event, and that's where a smaller number of people, certainly the VIPs, certainly the sponsors, and that would be a wonderful time for you to present these. If you're not there, I'll do it for you, but we'll make sure that you're on the list and get an invitation. I'll talk to Nicole tomorrow and get your ad. In fact, the invitations are going out this week. So I do have something for you. I have something for everybody, but we'll wait to the break for the rest of this. But each of you will get a lapel pin like this, because I'm sure you've been looking and say, why? So here's yours. And uniquely, we just yesterday got the commissioning coins. And the commissioning coins would normally cost you $1,000 in donation. I control the commissioning coins. And I'm not asking for money, but that's up to you. No, that you are the first person outside of my committee, because we had a meeting last night, to get one of these coins. Wow. So these are unique. We only minted 500. I personally control who gets one, and I'd like you to have it personally.
Can't thank you enough. Thank you very much. I'm touched. I'm going to pass it around here, but I want it back.
No, once you give it away, it's not coming back.
Okay, well, thank you. That is wonderful. Makes me very proud of Oak Harbor, and can't thank you enough. And it's a wonderful partnership we have with NAS Whidbey, and thank you all. So, would you like to recess for a few minutes? Yes, let's do that. Let's just say thanks to them personally.
It's a fifth?
Seven.
Once a year. I always did the Christmas one when I was pastor across the street.
Well, guess what?
I think we just decided that we're trying to do a baby shower. We'll do it the
I
following.
sure will. I would absolutely love it. All right. You'll leave it with me. I'll get it straight. Those are yours. I'd be happy to get that for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Admiral. Appreciate it.
Get on that ferry.
Yeah, I think we could find it in the budget if we name a carry.
Got the breakdown of our council spending.
Okay, we'll reconvene here. Thanks again. Wonderful presentation, proclamation. Really appreciate that. We are now on item number 3. This is our citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on subjects of interest not listed on the agenda or items listed on the consent agenda. To ensure comments are recorded properly, please state your name clearly into the microphone. Please limit comments to 3 minutes to ensure all citizens have sufficient time to speak. Comments regarding candidates or ballot measures are not allowed under state law. Individuals participating in public comment are asked to refrain from speaking on these topics during the comment period. So we'll open citizen comment period at this time. Mr. Hovey, I see Hal Hovey coming. Welcome, Hal.
Good evening. My name's Hal Hovey. I'm a resident here in Oak Harbor. A couple of things I want to talk about. I see you got your clock going. Good. First thing is Wood Chamber Park. I know you went over the 60% design review at the last workshop, and there's a meeting on the 24th, which I'm sure Brett's going to talk about more, from 5:30 to 7:30. That's open house to the public. It didn't get discussed in the workshop about the number of bathrooms, but I'm concerned that there's not going to be enough bathrooms in the new park. Right now, or last I heard, at the 30% design, there was only going to be 2 Portland loos. There also weren't plans for showers in that original plan, which I think that they were going to add in, but there need to be some showers down there in the park to wash off sand and stuff from folks coming up from the beach. So I just wanted to make those points. The other thing is, I know it's a while before you guys get to the, one more thing about the park. I hope that some infrastructure is being put in for support of security cameras and maybe even an expansion of Wi-Fi down there. I know that security cameras is a big issue for our attorney, among other folks, but we have to have some plans for making sure that all the investment doesn't get wasted. Okay, next issue, or next thing I want to talk about is the budget. I'd like you to also think in the future about making plans for improvements to your website and to video. You've got this great program now where the videos are being hosted for free on YouTube, and it would be wonderful if all the public could see the wonderful things that the Parks Board and the Arts Commission are doing, and if we could expand video to include those boards and commissions as well, because people always talk about that the community isn't really buying in, or the folks aren't paying attention to what's happening in the city. A great way to make people pay attention is to have video available to them. So if we could get some of the Arts Commission, Parks Boards, we already have the Planning Commission and the City Council meetings on video, I think that would be wonderful. Thank you. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Hal. Citizen comment period. Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Millie Goebel. I'm with the Oak Harbor Music Festival, and we're all really excited. It's coming up really soon, crunch time. But I wanted just to come and say thank you guys for your steadfast support over the years. The music festival wouldn't be what it is today without your guys' support, and so I know we're extremely grateful for everything you've done for us. The festival, I think, is one of the most fun events in Oak Harbor. I'm biased, but we are extremely grateful. And I wanted to invite you guys and also give you some swag that I've made for the festival before anybody else can get it.
What do we have here?
I have
Got some shades. All right. Thank you.
Can I use those with the, when the sun disappears?
No, it's going to be here for the festival.
Kojak.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Right on.
Are these Ray-Bans?
Of course.
Thank you, Millie.
These are your eclipse glasses.
Okay. Oak Harbor Music Festival is Labor Day weekend.
6 blind mice.
And it begins, a Friday night at 5-ish? Is that the opening? Okay, great. Sun will be out.
Chicken down on us. Not chicken down, I gotta read.
I'm gonna have to read this. Thank you very much, Millie. That was nicely done. In order to see what I'm reading here, I'll have to take my sunglasses off. Any other citizen comments? One more chance, citizen comments? Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda. We have items A through E on our consent agenda. And how would the council like to, seeing no change, oh, Beth?
I move we approve consent agenda A through E.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve all of the items A through E on the consent agenda. Motion by Munn, second by Almberg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We are on to, I believe, item number 5, which is the mayor, council members' comments. And that, I'll start off the mayor's comments by saying that we, meaning Oak Harbor, was chosen as the winner of the So Northwest Best Summer Day Escape category, based on the folks from Seattle Refined. In Seattle, we had hundreds of votes come in from throughout the state, and Oak Harbor far and away took the title. If you haven't already, check out seattlerefined.com/awards to see your post and TV segment and share. This is from their managing editor from Seattle Refined, and the people that they pulled from Seattle, Oak Harbor was chosen as the best one-day city to escape to. So it's pretty cool. Thank you, Seattle Refined. I also wanted to say that we have this coming weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we have the Hydros for Heroes. We've got a flyer here, and I think there's a few around the city, as you've already seen. And they'll be here both days, Saturday and Sunday. In fact, yours truly has been invited to ride again in a hydro, and I'm looking for volunteers if somebody else would like to go in my place. Tara would be interested. Okay. Well, by golly, I'll just pass that along then. Unfortunately, you can't be over 6 feet tall, so that does eliminate a few people. And I will warn you from doing it last year, there's not much to hold on to, but it is fun. It is fun. I couldn't talk my wife into do it. She actually got the invitation before I did, but she watched me last year, and it was fun. So Hydros for Heroes this weekend, 19th and the 20th. Also on Saturday, the 19th, is Tour de Whidbey. Starts at Coopville Elementary School, includes 4 different route options that route through Central and North Whidbey. So that will be happening on Saturday the 19th. And then the annual Whidbey Island Challenge Series hosted by North Whidbey Sunrise Rotary Club, is the Saturday, August 25th. Oh, it's it's August 26th, Saturday, August 26th, and it is the 25th annual Whidbey Island Challenge Series. So that'll be happening also. And then I did want to say that one of the consent agenda items that we had, it included our Arts Commission, and I want to make sure and thank Kat Kamak for a lot of hard work managing the commission. He does that while doing his senior planner duties, and I think he agreed to do that 4 or 5 years ago for a short-term basis, and he's still doing a fine job. So thank you, Kat, for doing that. And that's all I have, so I'll look to council. Anybody? Yes, Councilor Campbell.
I wanted to alert the community, there is let me start off a little bit different. If you are as tired as a whole bunch of people around the island are with what we hear on the radio and on the television newscast and reading in the newspaper, if you're tired of the way people are treating each other in that regime, there is an organization called Civility First that's got started on the south end of the island. Their first function is at, and it's at Family Bible Church Friday evening at 7 o'clock. If you'd like to come and look. If you just want to talk about it, you can give me a call. My phone number is 360-969-2170. And the idea is so that we all think about it before we start in on somebody, to try to change the way we're treating each other. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Campbell. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Moon.
I had my children alert me that anyone 62 years of age or older can go to the National Forest Service office. The closest one to us is Cedar Woolley, and for $10 you can get a lifetime pass. And they do have them in stock, but you have to buy it by, I believe they had on their door Friday, the 25th of August is the last day. But $10 instead of $80, which begins September 1st per person.
Okay.
So,
Well,
community
Okay.
announcement.
okay. 62 and older, okay. Councilor Wessinger.
Just like to thank everybody that volunteered and was involved in the Pig Fest this past weekend. It was a great event. I went with my family, and I know that, again, is a big coordinated effort with our city employees and resources. And I don't know much about the organization, but thank you to the people that do organize that and run that. And I know it supports a lot of great organizations in our local community, and I think that's fabulous. So thank you to everyone involved.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Eisen.
Real quick, I have to sneak out at 7 to catch a ferry. So if we're still going at 7 and I sneak out, don't mind me. And also, I didn't have any comments, but yesterday at work, one of the people that I work with who works with early childhood education and outreach and parents, she was at a park here in Oak Harbor, and one of the toddlers that she was there working with ran up to her because she had found a pipe of some kind. And, you know, the kid found this and brought it to her, and so she threw it away. But at my urging, she called ICOM to report that, because I hear a lot of anecdotal, you know, my brother's neighbor's mailman found a thing, but if we don't have documentation of these kinds of things being a problem, then there's not a whole lot we can do to follow up. We need to know which park so we can, you know, have extra patrols or at least be able to document the incident. So if anybody finds anything sketchy, just call the non-emergency number at ICOM and just let them know, and so we can get those kinds of things documented, because that's important.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to city administrator comments. Mr. Powers. see you're in the city administrator's chair this evening. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just three quick things from me, and then you're going to hear from Emma House, and then Brett will have his normal clean water facility update for you. So for me, and from Doug's desk, actually, just some upcoming items for you. We have a workshop next week, 2 p.m. start time, Wednesday, August 23rd. We actually have 2 action items on there for you. One is the award of the FDOC Breakwater project, and the other is potentially the approval of the class and compensation study, which you'll hear more about this evening from Emma. Second thing we want you to know about is our employee picnic is also next week. That's Thursday the 24th from 11 to 1 at Catalina Park. It'd be great if the council or the mayor had a chance to stop by and say hi to staff. That's put on through a lot of hard work by our wellness committee. Department heads try to show up and serve food. Ray is our typical barbecue king. He's the one who leads the barbecuing for the department heads. And then finally, sometime in September, we're going to look to schedule a park plan meeting with the council, the planning commission, and the park board. We've talked to you just a little bit about that project, but we see a great opportunity to have all 3 bodies together, have a great conversation about this project and where it's heading. Right now, we're thinking about the 3rd week in September, but as we get closer to that, we'll try to get some dates out to you, and we can find the one that works best for you. So that's all from the city administrator's desk, and then I'll turn it over to Emma.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm here to give you an update on our classification and compensation study. As Steve mentioned, we will have a workshop next week on the 23rd where our consultants will be here in town to present to you what the study did and the outcomes of that result. But today I kind of wanted to give you a little bit more information about salary schedules. I know last week, or 2 weeks ago, Doug kind of gave you an update beginning with our grids versus our steps. That was kind of the beginning foundation of how our salary schedules work. And he also talked about our classifications, our job titles and those positions that are grouped together and placed on those grids in relation to the range of pay that they are associated with. So kind of keeping that base work in mind, to go a little bit further into that detail, our current schedule right now for our non-represented employees has a total of 63 pay grades. And only 26 of those 63 pay grades are currently being used. We currently have 8 steps for each pay grade, and those steps are alphabetical A through H. So right now, when you kind of look at that grid that we were envisioning, our pay grades go down on the side, and our steps go across at the top. And right now it's numeric, and it's alphabetical, and it's very consistent with a 3% difference between each of our steps that go across that board. So this is kind of a visual of what our current schedule looks like. You can see the salary ranges are on this side. You can refer them as grids, grades, or ranges. They are numeric right now, going from 23 up to 70-something. And then we have our steps that are at the top. Right now there's a total of 8 steps. They go alphabetically from A through H. So you can kind of see how the pay scale works going down and across. And right now, our steps that go from A to H are 3% between each step. So that's when an employee is making their longevity here after so many years. They go to their next step, and then they go to their next step. Right now, that's set on their anniversary date. So it could be their date of hire a year from then, or it might be their promotion date if they had a promotion or if they transferred. That anniversary date might adjust sometimes, but it's technically annually. So from the classification and compensation study, the biggest change that we've seen is that they are recommending a brand new salary schedule. The new salary schedule is going to be recommended at 22 pay grades, and these will be alphabetical rather than numerical. And they are recommending 10 steps across the board rather than 8 steps, which is what we currently have. And those would be numerical. So our alpha and numeric are kind of switching. But you'll also see that they're decreasing our number of pay grades because we aren't using a lot of those pay grades that we currently have right now. And they're also giving us additional steps because we've noticed that we haven't really been able to keep our employees moving through that step schedule to keep up with the market, which we kind of talked about as well when Doug presented this a couple weeks ago, the market, the minimums and the maximums. So the difference also is in the steps. Right now, it's very consistent. We see a 3% between each step across the board. And this will be changing with the new recommended schedule. Steps 1 to 2 would see a 3% difference. Steps 3 to 4, 5%. Steps 5 to 6, 3%. And steps 7 to 10, a 2.5% difference between each step. This is to account for the minimum and the maximum ranges that Doug had kind of talked about a couple weeks ago. Our minimums, we want to make sure we're staying competitive to be able to recruit the type of skilled professionals that we need. And then our maximums, we want to make sure that they kind of stay competitive but also attractive to retain our long-term employees and make sure that we are keeping them in that market that kind of adjusts over time over each year. So this is a visual of that new recommended salary schedule. Again, it switches the alpha and numeric. So now the pay grades over on the side are all alphabetical, going from A to V. There's 22 pay grades. And the steps across the top, now there are 10 instead of 8, and they're now numerical. So that is the recommended new salary schedule. Now, how did we get to this point? How did we get from a study that now is recommending a new salary schedule? There was a lot of different considerations that were taken into that process. So obviously we talked about the external market, our comparables, and that new range that we're kind of seeing, the minimums and the maximums and how they adjust over time. We also had, each position had one employee at least complete a position questionnaire. So we take all of those position questionnaires from all the employees and we point factor them over these different competencies, experience, education, skills, certifications, and things like that. I think there's a total of 14 competencies from each position questionnaire that we are point factoring. Then we also look at internal comparability. What that kind of refers to is we have non-bargaining units, which is your non-represented employees, and then we also have bargaining units, which are your collective bargaining areas, police and fire, Teamsters. So we want to make sure that we're being mindful of those different groups because a lot of times we just take care of one during negotiations and one during negotiations, but we don't really ever put them all together as a citywide looking at all of our employees. So making sure that we're looking at that comparability. And then the other factor is compression considerations. So again, when we have people inside or outside of the bargaining units, and when you have people going from lower level staff positions up to management level positions, you want to make sure that you're not having any type of compression that is creating issues with the compensation. So you want to make sure that it's attractive for people to promote to that next level. And if there's not enough leeway in the pay, then there may not be any attraction for people to go into that next level, because they might be receiving incentive pays or specialty pays because they're in a lower level position that has that, whereas when you move up, you kind of don't always have those things because you might no longer be in a bargaining unit that has those contract guidelines that you follow. So compression is something that we haven't really been paying too much attention to, but we definitely want to be mindful of it as we're looking at succession planning to make sure that we have people who are moving up into the positions that we need them to move up into as people are retiring. A note is the salary schedule lifespan is about 5 years. So every 3 to 5 years, you want to do a real in-depth review of the market and adjust your salary schedule if needed. It's been several years since we've done an in-depth look at the non-represented salary schedule. So 5 years is about the time frame. You don't really want to go too much longer, and if you do it too frequently, it's a lot of extra work. So that's just a note to ourselves. And then another reminder that this classification and compensation study has been completed during the past 8 months with McGrath Human Resources Group, and they will be here next week. There was staff questionnaires and interviews completed. The consultants did a lot of their own research off of the information that they gathered from our employees and from the questionnaires and from our comparables. And there was a lot of data analysis that was completed, obviously, because we are looking at the minimums, the averages, the maximums, That's all the compensation piece, but then there's also the classification piece that looks at the position titles and the job responsibilities and those descriptions that we're actually using for those employees. So from all of that information, we have done a complete review of the consultant's final report, final data, and we are presenting it to you next week for consideration. So this is just a reminder, on the 23rd at 2 p.m., the consultants will be here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Doug anytime in advance. Any questions this evening?
Councilor Servadius.
Thank you. And Mr. Powers may have said this. When you say for our consideration, was this an action item at the workshop?
It is scheduled for an action item, yes, sir.
Okay. Next question. How many pay grades do we have right now?
I think it's 63. 63,
And we're going to 22.
yes.
Okay, I didn't realize we had that many. And is there any standard timeline between steps? You mentioned an anniversary. It's not necessarily, though, every year a person jumps a step, do they? Or do they?
Well, right now, one of the reasons why they are recommending a new salary schedule is we have about 24 of our non-represented employees who have maxed out on our salary schedule. They have not had step increases for several years. Some of them going back to early 2000. So we've got a lot of long-term dedicated employees, and eventually they max out on the salary schedule if we're not adjusting the salary schedule with the market regularly. So yes, to answer your question, there's not a set date for each person because it is based on their anniversary date, and usually it's your date of hire, and it would be annually from that date. But in our policy manual, if you have a promotion, or if you transfer to a different department, or if you are in a reclassified position, it adjusts your anniversary date. So for some people, it may not be a clear way to see that it is annually, but for the most part, it should be scheduled annually based off of a date of their employment status, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. And I appreciate everything you said. So the consideration I would have then from a budgetary standpoint, maybe this is a Dr. Merriman question, if in the early steps it was 3%, then going to 5% to encourage someone to push through that middle management or the formative years there, you could be looking at, if there's a COLA plus a 5% pay raise, a 7% increase in payroll. From the council's perspective, is that sustainable? Are we running some of those numbers for the workshop?
Yes.
Those numbers have been run,
Yes.
Mr. Servadius, and of course, I think it's important to remember that that's not across the board.
Right.
And so a big part of this is, since we're dealing with people, it's individualized, and so there will be some individuals who will be in that position, but
Yes.
but many others will not be. But Dr. Merriman and Emma and Patricia have gone through the number crunching on that and are prepared to tell the council what that implementation cost is for this year and for next budget year.
And last question, will we see that before the workshop? Will that be coming out to us in any kind of a written form?
If that would be your preference, for sure.
Please.
I believe the executive report is available now from the consultants, and we'll make sure that the costing is available before that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Councilor Umber.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. House, based on the presentation, salary increases appear to be automatic based only on longevity. Is that correct?
Yes, based on a date.
Okay, so what process do we have for performance evaluation where it's merit-based?
We
Promotion.
currently do not have any type of merit-based pay.
Well, shouldn't we have
We're
a
considering it.
evaluation merit-based
Yes.
if we're considering a new schedule?
Yes, that is something that the consultants have also put in their recommendations, is they've provided not only current classification and compensation information, but also policy recommendations and benefit recommendations.
Okay.
So that part has not been covered yet, but during their presentation, those are additional recommendations that they want us to take into consideration, and the policy updates are definitely something that merit pay would be through.
Okay. And then at the last meeting, when we talked about this with Dr. Merriman, I brought up something that is pretty important in these situations. You know, the community pays our salaries here.
Yes.
How are comparable positions within the private sector being included in this rate study we seem to be comparing just one city to the next city to the next city. You know, we're always looking at the neighboring fishing ponds and not really into the lake.
Right. A big focus has definitely been the comparables. Our consultants have come from another area as well, and they're used to looking at the benchmarked positions per industry standards. So they look at a national benchmark as well as our comparables. So they did do other agencies other than just cities.
Other
So-
agencies, but how about on the private sector?
Yes.
Are we going to include that in the discussion that's relative to Oak Harbor?
I believe
Whidbey
so.
Island?
I don't think that they go into the specific detail, but we did bring up some specific that we wanted them to look into. The Navy was one of them, that we asked them to very closely include that for us.
This
So I don't
question
know
will be
that they'll
coming up
answer
at the
your question
workshop.
or not,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
I don't know that they answered it, and
Okay,
they probably
thank you.
will better than I can.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Howe.
Yes.
Other questions? Anybody else? Thank you, Emma.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Okay, and I think we're on to Clean Water Facility update.
Good evening. We have our Clean Water Facility project update. Oops. Oh. Yeah, we've been working on this project for a long time. I'm 2.5 years on it, and it's amazing. You don't realize that things change very quickly. We see things day to day, and you forget what you did a year ago. So we've actually done a time lapse of this project, and we have a video camera up on the top of the Woodby Bank building, and it takes pictures every 10 minutes of the site. And so we have done a time lapse to kind of show you where we've gone in the last 2 years. And this moves along pretty fast, and it's kind of like watching a movie. Sometimes stuff in the background is kind of interesting, and every time I look at it, I start seeing different things. But it has been very fascinating, so we'll go ahead and get started here. This is way back in October of 2015. This part was very interesting to me because we were trying to resolve some archaeological questions. This came up when we were having a great time with that. So. And the camera catches it in the center. You don't see the stuff around the periphery.
Should have the Benny Hill music playing.
So anyway, that's 2 years worth of work in 1 minute. But we have come a long ways, and we're coming out of the ground. Recent activities on the design side, we're continuing work on the Windjammer 90% design documents we have presented on the 60%. Continue to work on the SCADA software development. That's a big task that's going on right now. We gave the Arts Commission a listing of possible art pieces, but with the 60% in summer, we haven't gotten back to them. So I'm hoping to set up a meeting here in the next couple of weeks so we can kind of revisit where we want to go with that. Construction-wise, we're placing concrete. GMP is number 8. Number 10, self-perform work is ahead of schedule, and below labor estimates are about 105% of plan and 95% of labor. We're continuing to backfill around structures, which has been a challenge. Continued construction for GMP number 9 and number 11. Number 9 is the mechanical electrical, and right now our lower floor at the Woodby Bank building is starting to fill up with machinery that's getting ready to be installed. So we have this big garage door, and and then we have forklifts going in and out. So we're worried about filling up the floor there pretty quick. Number 11 is all the superstructure and masonry and a whole bunch of that kind of work. As of today, we had 95 workers on site, and we're still expecting to grow this month. And the masons are going to town. We're actually just about finished with the membrane building, and we're going to start doing the buildings around the perimeter. Unfortunately, we did encounter more human remains on the project. It was successfully resolved using our MOA process. I hate to announce this, it's getting way too frequent. Like we are moving ahead, but our archaeology budgets are taking a hit with all these fines. Funding, right now we're still waiting word on the 29 million from SRF. It's still in the system. We are on the list, but we're waiting for the capital budget to be passed by the legislature. So right now we're on hold. We are pursuing Windjammer Fund funding opportunities, but again, the capital budget makes that a little more difficult. We haven't got many major updates and council decision points coming up in the plan, so you'll just be hearing us talk at our normal status reports, but if we have something, we'll let you know. Schedule-wise, we just finished what we call Oak Harbor 34. We update the schedule about every 2-3 months, and number 34 was the 34th version of this, and so far we remain on schedule and budget. We're hammering it, as you can see from our video. We do have an event planned for August 24th. I think Hal alluded to that earlier. We are having a public meeting for the 60% Windjammer design. So that will be here at City Hall on Thursday, August 24th from 5:30 to 7:30. And the public's welcome. We are sending out a postcard to all the mailboxes in town inviting people to come. And also, we are sending some advertisements. If you can't make the open house, we do have the online open house, and that's been very popular. And so that's available, and that site will be in the postcard. Other than that, you can always get a hold of us at oakharborcleanwater.org. You can call us at 914-7000 or our work extensions. Email us at treatmentplan@oakharbor.org. And our next open house is August 28th, and of course, by appointment.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Umber.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, Brett, I don't like to ask questions where I blindside you guys on, but when you were showing that time-lapse video in there and things are flying pretty fast, and then I look at all that masonry standing up there, much of it still unsupported laterally. I wonder about the exposure that we have for a major event such as a seismic event. What type of coverage do we have? What kind of financial coverage do we have? What mechanism is in place?
You might remember a while back, one of our GMPs, we had a line item called Builder's All Risk. We paid $350,000. Part of that all risk policy, which is 100% of our construction cost, covers for flood and earthquake. So it's basically a homeowner's policy, which includes earthquakes. So
And that's through Hoffman?
Yes, through Hoffman.
100%?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's an insurance policy for specifically it has earthquake listed.
Okay.
But also, yeah, the building's more there, but remember that masonry is not unsupported. It's actually supported reinforced masonry walls.
Well, I know it's reinforced internally.
Oh, it's actually got pilasters and stuff too. So it's
but you don't have a roof on it yet, do you?
No, but the roof is not necessary for it to support itself. It supports the roof.
Right. Thank you.
Councilor Campbell.
Did you say the time for the August 24 meeting?
It'd be 5:30 to 7:30.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, Brett. Nice presentation. So we are moving on to public hearings and meetings. And to speak during a scheduled public hearing or meeting, please sign in or just come to the podium. You'll have a chance. Please state your name clearly into the microphone and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. We actually have 2 items scheduled, but I believe we're going to ask the council to postpone item number 6A. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor. Staff would like a little more time to do a little more community coordination on this item. So what we'd like this evening is to have the council just continue this item to October 3rd without opening the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, Councilor Servades.
I'll make that motion if that's all we need.
Okay.
I move.
Second.
Motion by Servades, second by, I'm going to give that second to Munns.
Let's don't have a phone.
And what is the motion again?
I would move to continue this item to our October 3rd council meeting.
Okay. You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are on to our last item, which is 6B, Resolution 17-12, adopting the Marina Improvement Plan. And I see our harbor master coming to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Tonight I'm here to present Resolution 1712 to you, which, if approved, will adopt the 2018-2022 Marina Improvement Plan. The Marina Improvement Plan is actually required under Oak Harbor Municipal Code, and it essentially says that we'll have a 5-year Marina Improvement Plan, which lists the anticipated projects for the marina. In the Marina Improvement Plan, we'll identify the funding, and the Marina Improvement Plan will be consistent with the Capital Improvement Plan. So a project to be considered for the Marina Improvement Plan, the criteria is that it must cost $50,000 or more. It must be an expense of public funds. It can't be an annual maintenance or operational expense. It must have a life expectancy of 20 years or more. And it's usually a large, significant project that takes time to plan. So as we looked at what projects we wanted to put in our Marina Improvement Plan, we came up with a combination of projects that were designed parts of the marina to improve the revenue or generate more revenue. We looked at the launch ramp and thought that'd be a great Marina Improvement Plan item, as it would help improve the slope of the ramp. We want to enhance the shoreline to aid in fish restoration, and we want to control stormwater runoff. So specifically, the projects that we're looking at is removing half of the E-dock roof, all of the D-dock roof, and the pile on the east side, and then, of course, change the storm drain to include some natural filtration, and change the angle of the ramp again. If you look at this map, you'll see the bubble at the top. That shows the E-dock area where we would remove the roofing. The roofing is the dark colored lines in the drawing there. The big bubble in the middle shows D-dock, and we would remove all of that D-dock roofing and the fingers on the east side. And in the orientation to this map, the east side is the side closest to the bottom of the page. We've circled the launch ramp to show you where that is. And then the big bubble at the bottom is where we would remove 700 feet of storm drain and replace it with a natural filtration system. So how are we going to fund these? We've applied for some grants, and we do have a very small amount of marina reserves. So the grants we've applied for are through the Island Local Integrating Organization. They're an organization that receives state and federal funding. One of the neat things about them is they don't require a match. We've also looked at RCO, the Recreation and Conservation Organization, and they do require a 25% match for their projects, so we haven't applied for any of those grants at this time. So the Marina Reserves, just a reminder, the Marina is an enterprise fund, and we rely solely on the money generated at the Marina to support the Marina. We have about 3 months worth of operating expenses. We have a bond reserve, and that bond reserve must stay in place until the bond is paid off. We have an equipment rental reserve, and what that is if our truck breaks down or our boat goes out or something like that, to replace those type of things. And then the one that we focus on for the Marina Improvement Plan is the capital improvements reserve. And you can see that we only have about $35,000 in there, which is a very small amount. As we looked at the projects for the marina to be included in the Marina Improvement Plan, we also identified other projects in the marina that we didn't want to lose track of. They're projects that are important, and we thought they should be a part of this, and we've listed them on 2 additional tables. they don't meet the Marina Improvement Plan criteria. A funding source on one set of tables hasn't been identified, and then on the second set of tables, they're under $50,000. The first table are projects in excess of $50,000, and these are projects, again, that we haven't identified a funding source for, so they're not really scheduled yet. These are things such as purchasing a boat hauling system, dredging, new restroom and shower facility. These are high-ticket items. The second table lists projects were under the $50,000, and these will be funded from our reserves or our operating budget. These are ongoing things that we do around the marina, such as purchasing and installing new pedestals, new power meters, and then replacing whalers. So really tonight, the recommended action is approve Resolution 1712, adopting the 2018 through 2022 Marina Improvement Plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, before we bring it to the council for questions, I'm wondering if anybody would like to speak, from anybody from the public? Yes, Mr. Hewlett. Mr. Hewlett is on our Marina Advisory Committee. In fact, I believe the chair.
That's true. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Chris covered well the overall concept of the improvement project, but we need to underscore a very significant thing, and that is the projects that Chris referred to as being not scheduled because they fall outside of the planning process and basically because we don't have funding sources. They include a number of things that are absolutely critical to the ongoing operation of the marina, like dredging, which is always a problem. You know, we're geographically and geologically challenged here because we're in a shallow bay. And it requires a lot of maintenance in order for there to be water underneath the boats, and it's kind of an important thing if you want to have boat traffic going in and out of the marina and so forth. We lose opportunities on a regular basis when we have potential mooring tenants come to us with a larger boat or a sailboat with a deep keel and so forth, and we tell them, you know, at a -3 foot tide, you're going to be in the mud, and they don't think that's very attractive, so they go someplace to a deep water port like Anacortes, you know, Everett, any number of places. So even the existing uses that we have in the shallower draft vessels have challenges. There are times at which certain vessels can't enter and leave the marina because of low water and so forth. And that's one of those unfunded, you know, elephant in the room kinds of things that we need to emphasize. There are some of the things that are talked about in the plan as far as taking the roofs off are intended to allow us greater flexibility to accommodate more vessels. Removing the roofs and some of the finger piers allows us to use, instead of small finger piers, we use a large side tie area for a larger vessel or number of larger vessels and so forth. You have to provide maneuvering room and a lot of other things, and sometimes you have to move the blocks around to make that all happen. And that's one of the challenges with a facility that was built in 1974 and designed for the needs and the appetites of boaters and the kinds of things that were going on at that time. It's a very, very different world now, and we face a lot of demands. The routine maintenance, you know, Chris and his staff do a fantastic job. They're very creative and very resourceful as far as fixing things. But you've probably heard me say it before, you know, we have a facility that is past its pull date, and they're doing the best job they can to make sure that it functions to the greatest of their abilities to make it work. But I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that one of the things that haunts us at the advisory committee and so forth is the fact that we're on the verge of, you know, we're one big storm away from not having a marina here, or, you know, substantial catastrophe that would create issues that financially we're not able to address. And it's not a matter of, you know, in an enterprise fund, we have to live on our own revenues, and there are lots of people that use the facilities down there that aren't stakeholders. They're not tenants. They're not paying for those facilities. So the people in the community that, you know, they're welcome to use the facilities for a park and so forth. They also use our dumpsters, our restrooms, our showers, parking spaces, lawn tramp, you name it, a number of things. And I've yet to have any, I've been a tenant for, I don't know, over 15 years or so, and I've yet to have anybody in the community come up to me and say, thank you for helping pay for the marina. And because I don't, I don't have a boat there, but those of us that do have boats there are footing the bill for all those things. And that's, I'm editorializing a little bit, and forgive me for that, but the issue before us is that we have an aging facility. We're planning to do the best we can with the resources that we have. We've applied for a number of grants, as Chris has mentioned, but there is no guarantee that those grants are going to be forthcoming. And then the unfunded portion, or the portion where we don't even have a clue where the funds are going to come from, is a big number, in the $5 or $6 million range. So the point of all this is we have a really wonderful asset there. It's critical to the overall structure of this community and the use of the water by our citizens and guests and visitors and so forth. And for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to draw much attention in terms of the financial side of it in making sure that that facility is there to serve this community and the people of Whidbey Island and their visitors and guests for a long, long time into the future. So that's just the canary in the cave speech, and I'll get off the soapbox here, but thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hewlett, and thank you for all of your hours that you put into helping us on that advisory committee. Much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Public, okay. Seeing none, let's bring them back to council. Any questions? Any actions? Yes, Councilor Olmberg.
I have a couple of questions here, Mr. Sublette. First of all, not only are we probably one major event away from having a physical catastrophe down there at the marina, we also have on the horizon, and we can see it coming, our issue with DNR and leases down there. And so since this is a enterprise fund supported solely by the ratepayers, people mooring boats down there or parking trailers down there, that's the only source of revenue. What are we doing? What is your plan? Is there a plan for meeting the deadline for the new lease? Or if we're going to have a new lease?
I think I'll direct that towards Mr. Powers.
I'd be happy to answer that, Chris. Mr. Olmberg, I believe Dr. Merriman's office is still working with our elected representatives at the state. As you are well aware, we've tried unsuccessfully for the last 2 sessions to get some legislation which would give us some relief from the current DNR lease rate calculation formula. We've not given up in those efforts. I believe it's our intention to try to work to get that introduced yet again for this legislative session. So that's sort of one prong of our attack, but I would expect that simultaneously we will also have to start working with DNR in the not too distant future in 2018, because as you know, our lease expires in the middle of 2019. I think it's June of 2019. So we probably shouldn't leave ourselves any less than a year to work with DNR, but at the same time, not give up on the legislative front.
Okay, and then the other item is, and this is something that's bothered me for a long time, and that is the allocation of the use of that marina facility. Part of that facility, as was brought up by the presenters, is also a park function. You're aware of this. Everybody's aware of this. How do we allocate those funds, that percentage that is used for parks, so that we can help shore up the reserve down there? And question number 2, what is the mechanism that we could do right now, tonight, to say we want an allocation formula presented by staff so that we can start charging park service for part of that park use? Do you need a motion?
No, sir. we would in fact probably discourage a motion this evening from the council
Good, I would
dais.
love to hear a commitment, though, from
Yeah.
you.
Well, you probably won't hear one of those either, but what you'll hear is the best answer that I have this evening for you. If I understand your question correctly, you're asking how can we go about allocating park dollars to take care of the marina? Is that, in summary, what your question is?
Not to take care of the marina, take care of that park portion of the marina.
There are, in fact, park dollars spent on that.
Is that right?
I think that it is somewhat of a misconception that the marina pays for the maintenance of Catalina Park. In fact, that's actually taken care of by the parks staff. Occasionally, Chris and his staff help out over there when extra hands are needed. But it is, in fact, a separate operation. It's just that the lines are blurred as we look at it visually because it's an asset next to our marina.
And then access to the piers for people fishing, access to the ramp for people using water recreation functions and things like that.
That's a separate issue, Mr. Allenberg, because it's a public facility. We're precluded from keeping our general public out of the marina.
I don't want to keep them out.
No, I understand.
How do we compensate the marina ratepayers who are paying for that asset, that city asset, so that the cost is spread equitably?
Well, I think that if we look at what our marina tenants are paying for, the primary bulk of their rates are really going to the moorage. And so very few of our marina tenants are utilizing the boat ramp. And so there isn't really much crossover there. Yes, the general public is allowed out onto F-dock, down the main walkway. As you know, we have security on the other docks. And so we don't really have much public use of docks A through E. F-dock is the one where we have the walkway that takes out there for the general public's use. And so there is some crossover, but very minimal in terms of direct impact to the marina ratepayers for the general public's use of things like the boat ramp.
Well, you and I definitely disagree on the general use of that by the public as being insignificant. It's not insignificant because I see people using the garbage containers down there. I see them using the restroom facilities. I see them parking down there overnight. There's a lot of public use of that facility beyond just the people who have boats down there, and there should be an equitable allocation of funds to offset those uses. And there is some percentage, whether it's 5% or 10%, there is a percentage in that formula that should be allocated outside of the ratepayers in that marina to help create our asset base or our reserve so that we can potentially bond for additional improvements down there.
So what I'd like to suggest then, if I could, would be two things. One, this sounds like a great topic for a future workshop item, and I'd be happy to work with Dr. Merriman and Chris and Patricia in putting together some information that we could talk to the whole council about in a more conversational manner.
That would be fair.
And the
I would
second
appreciate
part, maybe it's just an observation, which then is I think that you're suggesting perhaps a policy shift for the council in terms of how they use general fund dollars. And that's obviously something that would warrant a lot of conversation on the council's part. So we'll look to schedule this on and up. Obviously, next week we won't be ready,
Right.
but maybe we could hit the September or October workshop.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sublette.
Thank you.
Other council questions or? I have one question about the ramp.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to be able to do that so that half of the ramp is worked on at a time, so you can, or will that, when we get to that point, will that close that entire ramp down for quite a period?
We haven't got to the design part of that, but I believe that they would do the whole thing at one time. It would be difficult to do just a piece of it.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. How would the council like to? Councilor Servadius, you're
Thank you,
popular
Mayor.
tonight.
I move to approve Resolution 17-12, adopting the Marina Improvement Plan.
Second.
So got a motion by Servadius, second by Wassinger to approve Resolution 1712, adopting the Marina Improvement Plan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. And I believe that's our last item for the evening, so it's 7:15, and we are adjourned. Thank you.